Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss William Cowper's poem, The Light Shining of Darkness. So there are two poems which are prescribed of Cowper's. The first one is The Light Shining of Darkness, and another poem is very personal poem is On the Receipt of My Mother's Picture. So you have these two poems of William Cowper's in your syllabus. So today we are going to discuss the poem Light Shining Out of Darkness. Now, let's tell me about something about the writer, about the poet William Cowper. William Cowper was born in 1731, is the best representative poet of the transition period from Augustan to Romanticism. So he belongs to the transition period. Transition means the changing period. As you have learned about the Augustan age in your first year class, in the first year in B.A.Part first English literature, you must have known about the Augustan age. The Augustan writers focus upon form, they focus upon the style of writing, and they have used human nature, what kind of emotions, what kind of intentions develop in human heart, and what kind of things what kind of emotions he leads through. There's no emotions, what kind of things he plans to do that. So they focus upon the higher class poetry. They were higher class people, and their language was very polished, very standard. Whereas Romanticism is a philosophical movement. They have focused upon nature, but this nature is different from Augustan nature. They have focused upon the landscape, the beauty of nature, the trees, the garden. And similarly, there is also a change. The Augustan age, people have written poetry about the high class. But the Romantic poets have written poems upon ordinary man, and their style is also very common. The common means the language used by ordinary people. So that was the difference between Augustan poetry and the Romanticism. So the William Cowper belonged to the transition period. The period was changing, so there was an element of both form of writing, both forms of influences can be found in him. He experienced emotional conflict in his life, like many romantic poets. He faced emotional conflicts. Cowper lost his mother when he was only 6 years old, and he was a very sensitive boy. So he was given to fits of depression many times. He has the fits of depression. He had even attempted suicide. The grief was added due to failure in love. So there was all kind of you can say that disheartening things, frustrating things happening around him. He was inclined towards Methodism. It is the religious way of thinking. Uh, he had written several sad poems full of personal anguish, and the most famous of that, which you have in your course, the On the Receipt of My Mother's Picture, or On the Receipt of My Mother's Picture. Cowper has also written many religious poems, which reflects his deep faith in God. The poem Light Shining of Darkness is an example of this kind. Cowper means uses many metaphors to express the greatness and mercy of God. Cowper justifies suffering and hardship. So this is the main focus. This is the main thing which we can take it for granted, which we can use it, which we can imbibe in our life, that the sufferings and hardships which we face in life, which make us good for future. There is some hidden meaning in every action of God. So this is the way, this is the positive way of thinking, because the suffering and hardships are given by God. So there is some hidden meaning in that. Therefore, human beings should keep patience in every situation. So the poet gives a great message that in every way, in every situation, we must keep patience. The poem extols, the poem increases his complete faith in God. So this is a very remarkable poem of William Cowper. The poem begins with the admiration of God. He is omnipotent and omnipresent. What does it mean? That God performs his wonders in a mysterious way. Omnipotent and omnipresent means he is all capable and he is everywhere. Omnipotent means he is capable of doing anything. And omnipresence, the God presence is everywhere. God performs his wonder in a mysterious way. A true believer can see the presence of God in everywhere. A true believer can see the presence of God in everything. His will rides over the ocean. Even the storms are of devastating nature, of terrifying nature, are in his control. In other words, God's kingdom is supreme. There are still numerous valuable treasures hidden in the bosom of the earth. In spite of progress of man, one cannot restore the treasures which are hidden in the bottom of the ocean. Similarly, no one can overcome his will. God is sovereign. God is supreme. No one can dare to give him any order. So in this poem, in this stanza, the poet Cowper points out many characteristics which are unique of the Creator of God. The poet refers the journey of strength to show the inadequacy of human beings' wisdom. So he presents a picture, he presents an image of saints who was passing through the forest. Some of them rushing towards the shelter in order to escape the thunder and rain. And when they observe, when they see that the thunder and so they anticipated that the rain would come and they run away to take shelter. But they forget this fact that clouds of rain is blessing in disguise. It is the expression of God's mercy. The rain is the symbol of God's mercy. The rainwater is essential for flourishing harvest. We cannot imagine a flourishing harvest without rain. Cowper suggests that it is a great mistake to pass comments upon the judgment of God. So it is our folly, it is our mistake if we pass judgments on God's judgment. One must have deep faith in God. On many occasions, his designs, his actions looks harsh and unfavorable. But behind his angry face, there is a smile. In other words, when in suffering, there is something good to the mankind. So there is something good which came out later. But human beings lose faith very soon. The poet explains God's wisdom with a bitter taste, with an example from nature. He gives an example from nature. The bird, the flower of a bird, must taste bitter but when it blooms into a flower, it gives a sweet fragrance. So this is a very beautiful example of God's judgment or his will or his actions. In the same way, God designs work in favor of human beings. The bird which is bitter in taste, but when the flowers blooms, it gives a sweet fragrance. Similarly, the actions of God comes out for the benefit of mankind. It is a great mistake to unbelieve God's wisdom. So if we disbelieve God's judgment, it is a great folly. The blind nature of unbelief is that one should take the design of God of their face value. We look at the face value of things. The person does not ponder over the hidden designs of the God. We forget about the later's coming. The poet makes it clear that it is useless to examine his work. No one can explain the wisdom of God. It is the best, he is the best interpreter. God unfolds his wisdom, his will, on the appointed time. Therefore, the poem extols Cooper's deep faith in God. Human being salvation is lies in following his commands. God showers his blessing upon a true believer sooner or later. So this is the message of the poem, that in every situation we must have patience, and there is a great folly to unbelieve his work.